will need to follow my voice as it leads you into a relaxed state of meditation.
Welcome back to the Hobby Grow podcast. I'm your host, Ben Owens, hobby grower and ghostwriter for the cannabis industry. Each week, we'll dive into my network of growers, hash makers, breeders, and mentors around the world to give you insight into their journeys, as well as give you information you can use to grow better weed and make better hash at home. Hit subscribe, roll something up, and let's get into it. This episode, we are joined by grower and community voice Screwston Scarecrow of the Breeders Syndicate. Screwston Scarecrow is a longtime home grower with deep experience in seed hunting, verified cuts, and dialing in flower. He's also one of the mods of the Breeders Syndicate and member of the Can Illuminati. We met through the Hobby Grow Discord, where he's been active sharing a variety of grows. I asked Screwston to join me today to talk about his path from beginner to deeply experienced home grower, why provenance matters when buying seeds and sharing cuts, how to choose better packs and hunt with intention, why home growers should understand the cuts behind the hybrids, endgame decisions that shape drying, storage, and the final smoke, as well as his advice to other growers. So how are things going in the grow? Let's start there. What do you got going on?
Pretty good. So right now I have one space where I am cutting down. I'm cutting stuff down. I only have 4 plants left to harvest from there, but everything else is drying or moving into cure. I have another space where I just flipped a bunch of stuff that you'll probably start seeing pictures of here when things actually get interesting. They're only in like week 3 right now, so it is what it is. I set up a monocrop space that I just flipped like this week. And I set up another monocrop space that I am going to be transplanting in probably tomorrow.
Okay. And so were those spaces you didn't previously monocrop in, or is that?
There were spaces I didn't previously have.
Oh, okay.
I'm going through some life changes right now. We'll put it that way.
Okay.
And I'm able to do things the way that I want to do them now. So I'm, figured, fuck it, I'm expanding.
Like any good grower who doesn't have enough space to do things.
Oh yeah, dude. Half of my bedroom now is also, I guess, extra grow room. So
Yeah, one of the first growers I met out here was telling me when he first moved here that his whole house was warmed by grow tents, and I never understood until I started growing and running out of places to put them.
yeah, dude. Well, the thing is, it's like, for a while, usually, you always run out, before you end up harvesting again. And like as you start working down the cycle and building in redundancies to like kind of cut down all of those speed bumps that like make it longer until your next harvest, just getting like a dedicated veg and then getting a dedicated dry so that things are just constantly moving through, you usually still end up with not enough actual flowering space for a while, so it's such a fucking struggle until it's not. And then you're like, oh, hell yeah. Things just start popping off and you end up losing ounces of weed and stuff,
Yeah. No, I look forward to getting back into the surplus category. It's been, when you shut down and start back up, you go through that phase of lower usage and trying to be thrifty with your the harvest that you have.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we should back up a little bit for those that don't know and tell them a little bit about how you got started on this path, whether that journey starts at consumption or if it starts at your first grow, and sort of walk us through to now and the different projects you've been involved in and sort of the crucial pivots and stages that you feel, advanced you along the way.
Ooh, that's a good one. So I started growing because I was broke. you know, like I smoked weed when I was 12 with my friend. He stole it from his mom, you know, and we're just being little doing hood rat shit, you know, like smoking weed on the road and stuff. And I liked it a lot. And, you know, kind of you can only mow so many lawns and all that stuff to try and keep up. And this was in '02.
Okay.
And so, you know, after a while, I just decided, hey, I need to figure out how to grow this stuff so that I can smoke as much as I want to. And I had no agriculture background, horticulture, nothing. I didn't grow shit. No one around me grew shit. I just tried to learn, and that meant failing for many years. Like I didn't get a harvest until God, it was probably like '05 or '06, something like that. And it, I mean, I wouldn't call it a harvest now. I'll put it that way. You know, like they were just wispy bracts in the air, you know, like nothing, no real bud set or anything like that. Cause I just didn't know what I was doing.
And this was outdoor?
No, no, that, oh, so I was growing in my closet, and the first time I didn't, I didn't know what a photo period was or that pot needed that or any of that stuff, you know? So I just grew these super unhealthy looking, like big but not good plants, like just expecting there to be, you know, I didn't even know what, because that was, I was getting brick, you know, like Mexican brick. So I didn't even know what weed, like actual weed looked like, you know, like the actual flower, because that's just not the product I was getting at the time. Um, and yeah, it just, I kept walking to Barnes and Noble and like trying to read like as much as I could out of the books there, because I didn't have enough money to buy them. I couldn't just, you know, I couldn't get information like that from like the school library or whatever. I couldn't look for it on the one home computer I had, you know, like it just wasn't, it wasn't a good time for me to be
Yeah.
finding that type of stuff. Not like it is now. Um,
So you reading High Times or like Ed Rosenthal or just like any weed book that they had?
whatever, like I would just go for pretty much the most newbie stuff, like, oh, marijuana grow guide, whatever, you know, I don't even remember which ones I was using at the time.
Okay.
Because I would just grab stuff. I'd go to Barnes and Noble, go to the section, and start looking and try and just, you know, figure out the problems I was having. And over time, I did start picking up like little things, you know, like figured out that I need to get like high output shop lights, not just a regular T8, you know, because that might work for veg, but that shit ain't gonna, you know, like high outputs barely work for flower, you know, like, and just it just failing repeatedly, and you know, just trying to just keep trying essentially is what I did until I brute force figured it out.
Okay, because that was my next question was like, how did you go? Like, what pulled you out of that cycle and got you to like, okay, now I am like growing. Like, I'm not an expert, but I'm not just growing wispy plants with an underpowered T8.
Well, so with that, dude, I wouldn't count until like 2011 when I was like, okay, I'm competent enough to bring this shit in. And like I was starting to be able to diagnose, and that was from an Ed Rosenthal book. I got out of the military and was like, ooh, I'm gonna figure this shit out. So I ordered a book, read it, and was like, okay, started ordering soil and nutrients. I got, it was the Fox Farm before the Dirty Dozen, when there was only the like 9 bottles that they had. Uh and that was like what I got my first like, okay, cool, like harvest that I could actually be proud of. like showing my friends and shit. It wasn't just embarrassingly smoking in the corner by myself.
Okay, that's cool. And were you growing seeds then, or how did you like after
Yeah.
you? Okay,
Yeah. So at that time, man, at that time, I had gotten a clone of blueberry and something else. I don't remember what the other one was, but I had gotten it in like '07 from my friend who had went off to college in Austin. And he was like, "Oh no, bro, I'll bring you back clones and stuff like that." And I didn't like I still even in like when I started actually really harvesting for myself, I still only saw clones as like a multiplication technique, not like different plants
like
from seed lines. Like,
preserving.
yeah, like they, even though it's the same thing, they come out differently. And, like I wasn't even thinking about it on that level yet. It was all just like, oh, hey, I can, take a bunch of clones and flower stuff because I started getting
I
really
need
big into
10
the sea of
plants. I
green.
need okay, yeah, or sea of green.
Yeah, I got, like I went all out on flood tables and like, it just made honestly, I think what it really was like driving it was that because it was so quick to harvest and like I wasn't having to manage plants long term
Right.
and then flip them and then deal with the flowering after, like that it was easier for me to bring them in nicer.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. You basically give up all your veg time and you get to focus on the fun stuff.
Yep. And like problems that I have, they're kind of just starting to show at the end, like
Yeah.
it's not like starting to show right before I flip and then I'm fucked through flower just fighting it the whole way through.
Yeah, because you're what, like 10 weeks in instead of already being 5, 6 weeks in before flip.
Yeah. Yeah. And, now I've gotten to where like I can actually grow, but like I think that was a reason why I went so hard on that because I could get like decent buds in a jar, like to where the whole thing was pretty good, like grade A, grade B, size and density flower, which I definitely would have got a ton of larf and stuff because I wasn't doing I wasn't doing any of the things that I'm doing now, where I'm like actually managing and plant training, shit like that.
Yeah, well, and like back in the day, I mean, or even if you're running Sea of Green, like the idea is just to get what, like a quarter or a half ounce of weed, like just super premium, small plant, and just lots of it.
Yeah, which, that actually was also a bit of a problem because it's hard to fucking when you have like a 15, 16-inch solid bud, and that is everything that you harvest, it gets hard to like start cutting that stuff up into jars, like because it looks kind of weird whenever you're trimming off those buds of that main cola. And it would be a lot better if you could sell it as the whole thing, because then it look normal. You wouldn't have like lighter inside, like, and really it's like half a bud because of just the way that you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's different pluses and cons to each method, I suppose. But I mean, a lot of home growers I know, the number one rule is we don't talk about plant count, and Sea of Green kind of negates plant count as a whole. But it's a great way to get like low canopy, high quality, decent yields from the same
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, well, and you can do like I mean, I kind of do a similar thing now, just growing big fucking plants, densely planting them, and then stripping them up like heavy,
Okay.
way heavier than most people would think. And then I get those nice like fat bud sets on. I mean, you've seen
Yeah.
the
No, I've
deal.
seen your buds. Uh, always posting up in the Discord, which I appreciate. Okay, so 2011, sort of, you were giving this a serious shot. Like, where did you go from there? Did you start looking up forums or finding podcasts or finding like a local crew to learn from?
Yeah, so at that time, so I had like a bit of a rough transition. out of the military. And so I kind of like fucked off into the national forest for a while, like in national forest area. So I was like far away from everyone and everything. And I still ended up kind of building a little crew out there, just like some fucking redneck country growers, and we would be like trading cuts and stuff with it just from like our seed pops and shit. Like at that time, I was getting seeds from Attitude, just whatever I could get. A lot of like greenhouse and stuff that was past the prime of those companies, but you know,
But it was what you knew. It was,
yeah, it's who you think of when you think of like, oh, this is the most I want to go legit. This is the most legit I can get. No more bag seed, no more, and those are usually the first type of companies you run into.
Yeah. Which is man, there's so many ways we could go with that conversation, but I'll try not to derail this too much. Because I had a really interesting conversation with someone else recently about greenhouse. Maybe we'll circle back to that. But so you were doing your own thing, living the free life with a group of redneck growers, and where did that take you?
To jail.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so
Do not pass
at
go.
the height of my fun, well, I was all, so I was growing because I wanted to like have my own weed that I didn't have to, I didn't have to worry about selling and all that stuff, but I was also, me and my hood rat friends were moving product from a couple of different states into this state, and like a little buyers club,
Yeah.
and busting it down and moving it around town. So I ended up getting raided and all of that stuff. And like I fought pretty hard and paid a lot of money to get probation. And while on probation, I just kind of it was actually good, like because I didn't have that profit motive and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was kind of using I was kind of using the auspice of like showing my friends how to grow so that I could grow at their houses, and being like, no, it's cool. I'll show you how to do this. And just getting them to buy all the equipment and doing my thing over there. So I did that for a bit, until I got off and started growing in my apartment immediately.
And you had
And
all these growers that had your cuts and everything else already ready.
oh no, unfortunately, then, new people are not the best at keeping things. They don't understand the gravity of it, to where it's like, hey, if you just decide not to take clones, or if you don't talk to me or, these other people who have that cut before letting it go, things can get lost forever,
Yeah.
which I wasn't really popping that interesting as shit anyways at that point, I was mostly just doing it to do it.
Okay.
But that allowed me, like, not having that profit motive allowed me to really stretch my legs on the growing, and like not growing in terms of like, feeding plants and stuff, but like growing as a grower, and like building my understanding and knowledge base and kind of sharpening those skills more, because I wasn't having to take shortcuts or having to do the kind of, iffy stuff to make sure plants made it into a jar at a certain time, like, and other plants could go in and all of that. I could just focus on like, hey, I'm going to try and grow these plants to the best of my ability. And I'm going to continue to learn how to get better at actually growing them.
Yeah. No, and no, there's no motive like I have to get a harvest in the next 9 weeks to turn this around, or, any of that.
Yep.
Well, that's so then, and then that's just continued since, or how has the hobby grown for you? without that pressure? Have you, picked up new things like hunting? I would imagine is a new thing for you. Are you hunting, or do you
Well,
prefer to grow cuts?
definitely to I mean, I've been fucking going hard in the paint the last like 6 years in like sifting stuff.
Okay.
Um and I've gotten a lot better at choosing which lines I want to hunt through to get the results that like to get the kind of weed I want, you know?
Right.
And that's like I think that's the biggest thing that growers the biggest like hurdle to get over because it takes not only like experience but being able to research topics and like kind of learn things that you don't have experience in, like in terms of learning about how cuts how like the usual inheritable traits that they pass down and things like that, how things might clash, um trait dominance, just stuff like that, to be able to kind of narrow down, hey, I'm going to look through, 2 packs of this, 2 packs of this, and 2 packs of this to be able to find like this blueberry OG or whatever, and it's getting over that hurdle and figuring that part out. After that, it was like I unlocked a secret or something. And now, like when every grow, I'm happy and getting what I predict. Like the reason I pop this pack, I'm getting it out of it.
Do you typically pop like a small sampling to see how the pack's gonna go, or just full send it?
Oh, full send. The problem is when you do just like a little bit, like you end up going through the motion and getting down to where, now you're like 6 months in the hole. You gotta cut, and you're like, shit, it
Do I
was
have a
good,
cut?
and I want to pop the other one. And it also like makes it logistically complicated because now you have the cut of that thing and you have all these new ones going in. And I would just rather, because you can also just the way uh that seeds are, you can also that little look, that doesn't mean you got any, you could get the 20% of trash from that line in that little look,
Yeah.
and not know the if you would have just popped one more seed, or if you were to just pop the whole pack, the super killer cut that you end up finding out of it, you would have never found.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I wrestle with. Like I was talking to a buddy on the East Coast who used to grow a lot of DNA, and he was like, "Man, I would kill if I had just saved one of those packs or like half of one of those packs." And that's sort of like having killed a whole stable and lost all my cuts. Like now I look at it as like, oh shit, like maybe I should keep 3 seeds from every pack just as sort of an insurance policy that if I have to uproot and torch everything, that there's a chance of finding it back. But I mean, to your point, maybe I've saved the 3 runts or the 3 mutants or the 3 dudes, or those 3 aren't going to necessarily be a representative sample.
Yeah, so I do understand that. I get that point of view, and that like, ooh, just in case I want to be safe. But what I would do probably, so I'm cool with going through more and all that. Like the places that I get my seeds from, they have more of them, whether it's on the website or not or anything like that. Like I'm gonna get more if um but if I were to do that, I would probably save, like I would get 3 packs and set aside a whole pack, you
Okay.
know, as like a just in case type of policy. But I don't know, man. I guess from like the way that I look at it, the framing that I see it through is like seeds are not the collectible, you know? Like the collectible is that living plant tissue that you end up with from
Okay.
them. So like the way that I guess my brain sees it is like, okay, I gotta fucking pop these, make sure I, keep backups, make sure that I pass it around so that like that's the me getting it into other growers' hands as quick as possible, like my buddies here. like on my crew and stuff, is how I can preserve these things or save them or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Because, like, my head immediately jumps to, like, okay, if I have a plant that I cannot get more seeds of, then I'm either selfing it or TCing it, you know? And likely the TC is going to be a better option for long term viability unless you are really good at storing seeds.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, if you were going to go as far as TC, I'd probably just do both, you
Okay.
know, because it's like, you know, if something is that, if something is that special and like important to where I'm like, oh, fuck, there's no, you know, I can't even trust that everyone else, that someone's going to keep it or whatever, then that would be likely the redundancy but I also don't have like access to TC or any of that shit, you know, like I know there's the home microclone style, you know, TC stuff, but like I want that encapsulated shit, you know, like the fucking cryo, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the more I talk to people about it, the more I'm learning, and I still haven't decided. I'm probably not, and I'm far away from making my own home TC setup. But if I found a lab or someone that was, doing it consistently, that I had an in with and would allow me to preserve my cuts, like, full send. I think that there's definitely value in that. On the other hand, though, and this segues into something I wanted to talk to you about, sort of naturally, if you were to S1, um, it brings up the issue of provenance and sort of respect to the breeders who came before you and respect to just general cultural practices. And so I know this is a big topic with you and with Breeder Syndicate, and just generally speaking, not just provenance of the physical cut, but provenance of the education and the information and everything attached to it. So if you were making if you made S1s, like, is there, where do you fall on the line of, is there a code with what you do with those?
So there's definitely there's definitely optics to things. But then I think what's more important is functionality. What are you doing? You know, are
Yeah.
you just S1ing it to make sure that you have it saved, or because like you want to do further work with it and try and, you know, like and see what's in there or learn more about this cut that you love so much, all of that? Are you going to use it in future work? Are you just going to sell the S1s and undercut the original breeder, you know, and like label it as that strain? That would be fucked up.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and then
but
you've got a bunch of people with different cuts who say, I've got the whatever, but they grew out an S1 variant versus the actual cut.
oh, that happened. Oh my God. That is that has always been a problem, honestly. And like there, I think like half of it is just ignorance. Cause I know when I so I got, when I was buying seeds from the Dutch, um, you know, I got an OG Kush line because I was like, oh, let me check out OG Kush.
Right.
It was floral and like just, it was not OG. You know, I know that now, you know, but then I didn't. And I called it OG, you know, because I didn't even know that OG is not just like a family, but it's also, there is a cut, you know, like
Right.
it's the push cut, you know, like there is a the one in that situation, as well as like kind of a family umbrella that we put things under.
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean,
I've
yeah.
definitely also, you know, sold bag seed stuff, you know, that I like popped and grew out as what I got the pounds as, you know. So
Well,
like there's that ignorance, and then there's also like the, you know, confusing stuff where it's like, bro, you know better and you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be selling a line called that.
yeah. I mean, and we've seen, I've seen a lot of that, and I think, like you said, I think some of it is well intentioned ignorance. It's people who are like, oh man, I was able to get it. Like, I'll make packs for all my friends and try to help them out, and
Mm-hmm.
without any understanding of the ripple effect of that. And then there's obviously people that won't be named, but that just copycats of certain cuts, that are like, oh cool, I was able to get the cut. Let's throw out seeds.
Yeah. Well, and I'm totally down for people selling S1s. As I mean, obviously, I fucking popped quite a few S1s, like from
Yeah.
Caleb. So it's not like or from CSI Humboldt, like it's a good thing, and it's a great tool
Yeah, I
for
was gonna say
learning,
it's a tool that has a purpose, but I feel like it often gets the bad name because of these kinds of things. People ignoring the provenance.
Yeah, and they're definitely also for the listeners who are kind of like,
What the fuck?
I don't want to say newer in terms of like years long experience, because I don't know, there's like levels that you get stuck on kind of in growing, regardless of how long, like I was a noob for fucking like 15 years. It's not, like it that doesn't matter. It's like when you actually get the experience, then you kind of like grow out of that phase. And there's like you end up thinking that S1s are gonna, I'm just gonna fucking pop these S1s. They're gonna be exactly the same as the thing, and not understanding that that is highly dependent on the individual you are reversing onto itself as to how those S1s are gonna come out. Like you could have where it is damn near identical, like with Chem 91 S1s. They're pretty much the same thing, except there's two different like flower structure morphologies, but everything else is the same. um and then you pop other stuff, like Mendopine, you end up kind of getting different, like to where you're like, oh whoa, there's little differences in here, like, and you get different plants out of it.
S1 or runts and end up with every flavor of the rainbow.
I I'm so I a lot of those like modern stuff just doesn't I don't know, I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff just because it's in practice it's a lot of the same just over and over, like repeating itself. um
So what are you? I mean, that brings sort of an interesting question. Then, like, so in your grow, with the freedom to do whatever you want, like, what are you growing for? What are you looking for? What's your pursuit? What palette are you trying to build?
mm, so I like interesting weed, like, and I have different reasons for why I buy or pop packs, like so I've recently getting off of like a year and a half long, maybe 2 years, I don't know, it's been a little bit, shoreline hybrid sift, where I've just been like popping a bunch of different shoreline hybrids, um because I really like shore, and uh I've liked to see the new and like twists on my favorite thing. I have a lot of OG stuff that not only I'm looking through, but I'm also popping right now, because I do like OGs. I like the Lumpa's headband direction that goes, the Lumpas in 56 are, damn near identical, but in the hybrids they kind of like diverge into, like a more fuely thing, and then a more, I don't know, kind of like there's still like the fuel notes, but almost like a marshmallowy, just like a really neat take on it on OG that I did quite a bit. So I've been going through a lot of LHB hybrids. Um
What is LHB?
Lumpa's headband.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that was
Um
my next question. Was like, if you, as someone with access to cuts, especially verified cuts, like, why not just grow OG Kush as opposed to growing OG hybrids?
so I mean, don't get me wrong. I did run, like the 56 in my, not this last harvest, but the one before that. And I do have kind of a spoiled access to very well provenance cuts, and I run them. I mean, I have what in the tent that I just flipped Chem 91, ECSD, uh Blue Dream, and man, I don't know. I might have flipped another. There might be another legacy cut in there that I'm not thinking of, but like I also have it packed with hybrids.
Okay.
Um, I'm in the space that I am harvesting like right now. I have Chem D in there. Um,
And is
so
that
like
just to keep the
I do
flavor
run that.
stocked, or is that to give you like a frame of reference at that same harvest point?
Ooh, so it kind of depends. Like I do, for one, I do want the frame of reference on the pure, but on like most of those things, I don't even need it because I've ran enough hybrids, like different hybrids of the same recurrent parent to get a very good idea into where like when I do run, like when I ran the 56, I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. Like it just grows shittier than all of the hybrids that like I've run of it. They're definitely a lot easier to knock out of the park. But I definitely, it is to, and I kind of want to be able to. There's this weird thing that people have where it's like, oh, if you don't have the real cut, then you don't have room to speak or whatever. Um, instead of which I do, because oftentimes that is true, you know, but like a well-intentioned and a well-intentioned grower who is making the right decisions can educate themselves on things they'll never fucking be able to have access to. And I did that, before I got into the crew that I'm in that like afforded me that access. I was already like that's the only reason. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason they're giving me cuts is because they know I don't really give a shit about them. Like I like running hybrids and like finding cuts and seeds that no one else has. Like even though like yes, I may have access, but there are people who sell that shit too. And there's a
Right.
lot of fakers out there, but there's also a lot of people selling the legit cut, and you may have to pay, you may have to wait, or all you may get bugs or viruses and stuff, but like you can get those cuts with just having money. It's just a lot harder to get the real ones, but they're not able to get the fucking thing that I popped 2 years ago unless they got it from me or one of my friends.
Yeah, well, and it's like I tell a lot of new growers who come in and they've been buying something at the dispensary or from their guy or wherever that they've loved for years. Oh, I really loved that peanut butter breath. I'm gonna go buy seeds of it, and it's sort of that's the fork in the road, at least for where I recommend is you either want that exact same thing, and in that case, skip the seeds, just go find the cut, buy it, make friends with someone who has it, however you can get it, get the cut, or you want something different that's like that and you want to see what you can find and then go the route of buying seeds. But especially if you're buying from overseas sources that don't often post their breeding rooms, then maybe reconsider that choice.
Yeah, I would. If you are in North America, you shouldn't be buying across the pond in most cases. Like unless you're looking for something very specific. Um,
Like I just purchased ECSD cross by Hortilab that had to come out of Europe. I got some sour power from him, so pretty stoked on that. But yeah,
I've actually had there's some flour of that has come through the market. It does appear to be an actual ECSD
hybrid.
hybrid
Yeah,
or
I'm excited.
some some sour thing, it could, who knows what, but like
Well, him and
it
Karma
definitely
used to
was sour.
collab a lot, and there are a few names that I would mention as legit, but those two seem to continually fall in that realm.
Yeah, the people just got to be picky about who they who they get their seeds from, because
Yeah, that's great advice just in general.
yeah, like, because there's a lot of the internet is vast and it doesn't forget, and there's a lot of information out there that you can just look up before making a purchase, because like I wasted a lot of money buying seeds that weren't a hybrid of what it said it was.
Yeah.
And so, and that gives you like it makes the, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but it makes the field confusing. Um, like you don't have good data points to be able to actually steer yourself into what type of weed do I like?
Yeah, I
What
mean
cuts
if
do
you're
I like?
hunting OG at, like you said, like you had a very floral, sweet smelling OG. If that's your frame of reference, then if you're hunting for an OG, you're going to be hunting for you're looking for the wrong marker.
Yep. Yep. And that's, that goes back to the whole you know, trying to find out what you like by like growing. So you can learn a lot about your tastes by growing stuff. And the best way to like learn a cut is finding a legitimate seed source for hybrids of that cut. You can be in bumfuck Nebraska, know no one, and just get, a three hybrids of the same recurrent parent, like three different 56-day headband hybrids, and grow them. And you'll have a pretty good idea on the through line that connects all three of the stuff that you run, especially whenever you're dealing with, say 5 to 8 females of each line. Like you start to be able to piece things together in your brain pretty well.
You can see, yeah, like you can see that Venn diagram sort of start to form with like, okay, the common denominator is this parent. Here's the outliers on either side of that.
Yep. And it really starts to like piece things together, where like, I mean, that's where I'm at now, is where I can kind of like, I know the cuts that I like, or at least I know what they usually pass. And that's the type of stuff I'm hunting. So like I'm happy every grow. It's never like, oh, that was a waste of 3 months.
Yeah.
Nothing. Never happens anymore.
Yeah. Whereas I'm still pulling runts because I had a breeder tell me, he said, it's never worth it. Always kill the runt. And there's that part of me that it's like, oh, but maybe it is. And every single time I grow one and I get like 14 grams out of a 5-gallon pot, and I'm like, this was just not it. I should have just tossed it.
Man, I don't know. I go against that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, because my deal is like I'll just fucking grow more of it. Like I'll just do super high density, which I already do pretty ridiculous density for the spaces that I operate in.
And you're hand watering all of this, or how do
Yeah,
you?
well, so my initial 2 flowering spaces before my expansion were uh raised beds. So it's
Okay.
not like I'm, having to do a bunch of little pots. Uh
Not 100 half
that being
gallon pots or something crazy.
that being said, I do have for my monocrop tents, they're in just 3 gallons.
Okay.
But they're also all the same cut, or my other run that I'm about to transplant is going to be divided up into 3 different cuts, but like they're all similar stuff that kind of grows the same and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, because that was sort of where I wanted to head with that, was what pushed you to the decision of monocropping, as opposed, like as a home grower who has freedom. I often I've never monocropped, and it's to my detriment from a yield standpoint, but variety is, such a spice of life. Like what motivated that decision? Just you have a couple cuts you really like, and you've settled, and now you have the space to run them, or
Well, yeah, there's a bit of that, I might dip my toes in the market a little bit. I got offended by something someone said here about another grower whose whose weed I've tried, and I got offended by what they said about it. And so now
now you've got a spike grow.
well, I gotta show people what's up, like because there's there's been a big degradation. I've been operating in this market for a long time, on decently middle levels. I wouldn't say the highest, but me and my little group were a decent fish, and the degrad. It used to be wonderful, and now the game is fucked. And it's because like the money went out. So a lot of my friends who were doing things like on commercial level, busting out fucking suburban homes with 12 lighters and 6 lighters and stuff like that, like because they were getting enough for that to be feasible. They powered down to 1, 2 lights, just to be able to supply them, friends, family, like so the actual good weed in town doesn't really go that far outside of circles that they are grown in.
Okay.
Which to an extent was kind of the way it was, but every circle was able to grow a lot more and make it work, like because they were able to pay their houses with it.
Yeah, it made the investment and the risk worth it.
Yep. And now with, it's like there ain't no fucking way I'm gonna let anything go for like $1,000, like, and that's what the market is inundated with, like.
Yeah. I mean, up here in Colorado, like for those who do, dip their toes in, like it's not a pound game anymore. Like you can't compete at the pound price because the pound price is not a feasible price. If you want to be doing this, you're doing boutique batches and you're doing boutique drops and you're doing, offerings that are priced all the way up that you don't get a break, you know?
Yeah, that's the only way that is the only way it works. Or there's definitely niches that still pay, but like you said, it's not on any scale. You're not gonna fucking get off a pee to them.
Right.
It's gonna be a jar, like, and you're gonna be paid well for it for old world prices. But who wants to meet up with
Right. Then
the
it's a
amount of
volume
people it
game.
takes for like an 8 lighter, like
Well,
that
and it's
used to
like,
be able to feed your family. You'd go on vacation, like everything, life was good. And, the weed was good, a lot better back then. And now you're not going to meet up with that many people to sell that much, it's too risky.
yeah, I mean, it's like I tell people like you can't buy my weed. It's like, and that's not it's literal, but it's also like there's not enough to go around. It's not like there's just a surplus I'm sitting on that I'm just telling you no. Like this is grown for me, grown for my wife, grown for friends. Like it's like you said, it doesn't make it out of the circle, and it's not intentional. It's just that's the nature of it.
Yeah,
How has
it's
sorry, go ahead.
oh no, no, no.
I was
Go.
gonna say
Sorry, I
like
take
you sort
longer.
of mentioned like this trend of like it being very closed circle and then sort of every people being able to feast and then sort of slowly kind of going down the other side of that bell curve. Like how has the state with hemp and THCA and that aspect in the last few years, has that you know added to this restriction and people kind of going back into their circles? Has it opened the gates to be more open about growing and consuming and just cannabis culture in general, or has that had any impact at all on what you and
Well,
what you've
it
seen?
it definitely it's definitely had like an impact, both positive and negative. Because like all of our big cities have essentially decriminalization of a personal amount. So if you have less than a QP, which is less than a felony, um, you're, either you have a class or maybe a fine or something like that. But also because of that, all of the small counties outside of every big city are now like fucking crazy harsh to where you're going to jail for half a gram of flour,
Oh, damn.
just as like a pushback. Uh
Well, and you guys have been a
there are a lot of
hotbed.
people running the loophole. What was that?
I was like, you guys have been a hotbed. I mean, of controversy as the state has tried to rein things in, and then the pushback. And I mean, it's a giant market what Texas has created. Like when I went and visited Austin, I was blown away by certain things that
Oh,
it's
like the actual dispensary vibes and stuff.
yeah, like even like I went to Lazy Days, which was super cool. Shout out to them. And like I've been to Amsterdam. It was an Amsterdam coffee shop in the middle of Texas. It's like you just walk up and buy weed and a weed drink and sit down, and I worked for 4 hours. It was like, this is awesome. This is way more progressive than so many other things. But on another level, it's not. It's very much like Amsterdam, or very much like an unregulated market where like I'm assuming total risk that I have no idea what this plant was grown with, sprayed with, how it's been handled. And no shade to any of the chain of supply, but we know there are bad actors in the space, and so you're sort of just accepting that risk in the trade-off for the convenience and the novelty, I guess.
Yeah, well, so a lot of the people, I'll say, from looking at, because I have been to a couple of spots, it just in my in my activities in the background, I have, kind of shown up to try and vet people and stuff like that, like kind of just check out
Yeah.
certain actors in the space. And I mean, honestly, all of the weed seems the same as what you'd buy on the black market. And they're all just doing the same type of, for the most part, same type of grow styles as any commercial spot in any other state. It's just labeled differently.
Okay. Cause yeah, that's like I have a good friend in Asheville who was on the podcast last year, and like I know him, I know his grow methods, I know that he's following the same standards that I would in my home grow or some of these other growers would, but I've been warned by many not to generalize his attention and care to the rest of the market, and that because, like you said, prices are coming down because there's a lack of regulation, that there's a lot of eagle packs floating around.
Oh yeah. Well, there's also a lot of I mean, well, I'll just say that there's a lot of out of state work that's going through too, just because of how gray the lines are.
Yeah.
And things are easy to do. And that's cheap. If I can buy, a truckload from NorCal at, you know, 200 a P for stuff that they can't move in their system. And then, be like, oh, Cali Exotics or whatever, like put that on some jars and stuff. That's kind of the thing, you know,
Yeah.
which is to an extent is going on everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's happening within the system too, that it's not supposed to happen in.
Yeah. Well, and how has this, I mean, like as a grower, I know like as a consumer, decrim is great from a possession standpoint and things, but like has it changed the like cultural acceptance of growers? Like, is there still a taboo around like visiting grow shops and attending grow
Oh no,
meetups and things, or?
it's definitely so like now it's pretty cool. Now, like I go to two hydro stores. I don't go often, but there are, like oftentimes like when I'll go and get my full power or whatever, I'll go in and just pick it up real quick. Um, but they're able to grow, like they got hemp licenses so that they could set up actual grows. They're in the shop, you know, and we don't have to pretend to be talking about tomatoes anymore. We don't have to, you know,
cool.
like it's a lot cooler on that side of things, I'll say, for sure. And I mean, dude, it's hard to go out. Like, say you go out for a night anywhere in the city, it's hard to not smell fucking weed somewhere, you know, like, because people were kind of able to just openly smoke at a lot of places now. There's a lot of specifically 420 friendly places where, hey, come here, buy a sandwich and sit on the fucking patio and smoke weed. We don't give a shit. You know, like, and there most bars allow you to smoke weed in the backyard, you know.
Or are serving THC drinks. When I was there, like you could add a shot of
Yeah.
THC to your anything.
Yeah, I mean, even in the liquor store, they got like THC elixirs or whatever, you know, like fucking there's a whole section at our biggest liquor stores around here, which is Specs, for just THC stuff, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like I understand the argument of operators who struggle in the face of some of this, but I also see like grand scheme, grand vision, like we want THC to be available like other regulated substances. So, you know, if the liquor store wants to sell weed drinks next to the alcohol beverages and you know, it was derived from hemp and that's the way we're allowed to do this, then in a lot of ways that's normalizing it in a way that going to a dispensary that follows all these rules and nondescript markings and you know feeling like you have to just cut off your arm and your leg to get in there, like Colorado's made it even harder now for med patients. I've been a med patient since I moved here. Now you not only have to have a med card, but you have to actually violate your own HIPAA laws, and share your physician certification, which is the private document your doctor signs and says, hey, here's why you need, you know, this medical recommendation, and they now require you to show that to, you know, any Tom, Dick, and Harry working the front desk at a dispensary part time just to get in.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild, and you know, not to diverge the conversation too much. So, but yeah, you know, it's why I tell people like it's the state is not making it easier to be a medical patient. Like grow your own, you know.
Yeah, I mean, dude, honestly, it's the best thing that even just like your casual smoker, like, or not casual, but like your I smoke weed every day type of dude, it's your best shot, you know, like because you get so much more control over what you're smoking, how you smoke, like, or not how you smoke, but how it's grown, you know, like you get to choose those things. You essentially get to curate your own cannabis experience, you know, and there's something real fucking special about that because you also, as you get better and gain more experience, you're able to curate that experience for other people, you know. And I don't know, man, there's something profound about being, you know, like meeting a grower and them kind of either being brand new or just kind of not quite putting the pieces together yet because they don't have enough information, and you being able to just like have a conversation with them on, hey, what type of weed do you want to smoke? You know, like what do you want to grow? Do you want to learn about a certain cut, or do you want, you know, and being able to help them and like watch them grow those things and get that fucking exact experience they wanted out of it. It's just like magic.
Yeah, and there's never been. I mean, like I think about like grow stores having hemp licenses. Like I'd imagine even cuts are now available at the grow store. Like, but beyond that, the information is so much out there. I mean, YouTube, podcast, Discord, wherever you pick, you don't have to go to Barnes and Noble and hide in the corner and read the weed book anymore. You know, like and again, to your point, depending on what you want, you can just pick a path and in one or two cycles get really good weed for a new grower. You know, if you're dedicated enough to just follow the plan and not stray too far one way or the other, it is much easier than it's ever been to get to the same level of quality you've been buying, I think, for most buyers.
Oh, dude, I think better, you know, like there is definitely the difficulty of like drying and curing that, you know, people are gonna face. But if they just keep it simple and this is going to sound derogatory, but try and be normal about it. They're gonna grow weed better than they can buy pretty much immediately. You know?
Yeah, it's the secret sauce bias, and I find myself with the same bias, but it's like you start something new and you're like, I'm gonna be a savant. I'm just gonna try my hand at this, and I'm gonna be a wizard, and it's gonna be the best thing. And so I know better. I'll just put an extra milliliter of this in, or I'll throw in some of that, and no, just follow the recipe.
Yep. Learn how to do it first.
Yeah,
Everyone wants to try and innovate. I mean, I guess it's probably the same thing everywhere else, but because I'm very involved in this space, I see it often here where it's everyone wants to innovate, right? And it's like, bro, you haven't even had your first harvest yet. Maybe let's get that down first, and then we'll move on to you changing the game, like,
yeah. Like you just come in and try it. Swing the ball, see if you can hit a single, maybe a double. You're not going to be Barry Bonds with home runs day one at the plate.
yep. But dude, now, I mean, like you said, now is such a good time to be a new grower. You can, within like 2 years, you could be far outpacing your peers if you just, you know, take it seriously and be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, I mean, going back to sort of your idea about seeds, like being picky with seeds, like it's also just being picky with information. And I think learning how to vet the information that or whatever it's being called, but learning how to vet things that you're told is an invaluable skill.
Oh yeah. And it's hard in this space because you can, very quickly go back to a forum post from 2006 that's just some fucking nonsense, and not have any context for it, like it's very easy to be led astray. I would suggest just getting, a book, because it's likely going to be more solid information, just your standard industry, but like an Ed Rosenthal, grow your own marijuana book. It'll break down the simple basics and just build off of that.
Yeah.
It really isn't that hard. You People definitely make it harder than it is when they try and, do all these extra things, and things very quickly start getting screwy on them.
Well, and they think, and I say this as someone who did think this, that like, oh, I'll take the best of Kyle Cushman's advice and the best of Ed Rosenthal and the best of the Rev. And then, my buddy over here with a 2x4 said this worked for him. And so I'm going to hodgepodge these four methods together and I'm going to get the best weed ever instead of just picking one of those particular paths.
Yeah, that's there's oftentimes conflict in when you're talking about, things like that in growth styles, where it's like, you kind of, those two aspects kind of cancel those two,
Yeah.
systems out. And there definitely is like a base layer of just, I guess, normalness through everything, like your plants need food, they need light, they need water, like these are very simple things that are kind of concurrent through them, but you definitely can get to where you're like mixing and matching systems that start just canceling each other out, like where you start getting lockout because, like you just don't know that you should have expected it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's something I'm reminded of by my mentors is constantly asking, why? Like with any change or anything you want to do in the grow, but in life also, like, why am I making this change? And if you don't have an answer, maybe don't make the change until you have the answer.
Yeah, and make one change at a time
Yeah,
for
that
a
too.
while, like until you get good enough to, like, and that'll be, probably years for pretty much everybody. Um, just change one thing at a time so that whether something works or not. Okay, this is this is the end result of whatever I did. when you end up changing, literally, I've seen people do it time and time again, where they're like, okay, second grow, this is what I'm going to do this time. And they change every fucking thing
New
about it, every
lights, new
variable.
newts, new genetics. I got the whole new thing set up.
Yep. And like new styles, and it's like, bro, just, let's try and diagnose what didn't you like about that last run, let's try and figure out, okay, what did you do wrong first? Because most of the time, honestly, most of the time it comes down to watering for new growers. Like
And measuring your
learning
newts.
how to water, how much, like when it that frequency and volume thing, it plays a pivotal role in how your plant uptakes the nutrients. So when you start fucking that up, like that's why you end up with so many what's wrong with my grow on Reddit, like saying they have, what deficiency do I have? And it's like, bro, just water, like focus on your watering for the next week and see, back off on your light just a little bit and let's see how it turns out, see how the new growth comes out.
Yeah, and I mean it's something I also say that when you make changes, even like if you make one change and you're intentionally looking at how does this new changed grow compared to the one that was unchanged, and like just out of that intentional focus, those grows will be better because you're paying attention in a different way.
Yeah. And that's I definitely recommend it's a I guess a little bit more technical of a skill to learn, but it's definitely easy. Like people make that more complicated too. But cloning,
Yeah.
because the faster you can get to, either that or if you're just getting clones from people, whatever. But running the same individual plant repeatedly really fucking helps. Even if like, oh, I want to look through other shit or whatever, still just throw one in, so that you can start walking those plants in, learning them, and that will really help you start growing a lot better.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, when I started growing and I was doing all these popping all these seeds and everything, I had a grower tell me that he grew the same strain only for like 3 or 4 years when he first started and just got to know that plant. And that's great if you love that plant. I have a friend who grows only Cap Junkie, but if you don't or you are easily bored, it's I get that temptation to just want to try something new and shiny. There was a new seed drop yesterday.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying, fill your whole room with only, smoke only the same cut, for 3 years. But um, like throw one in. That's what I, like just as I'm making my selections and stuff. Um, like because that first round of selections, when I move on to the second one, I'm usually running either a second run of another line or a new line that I'm also sifting, like I'm just working them in until I get, better at growing those individual cuts or until I end up making like the final selection.
Yeah. No, I love that. And cloning is something that has been an instrument. Like I think we talk about like skills in the grow that like level you up in a very noticeable, very impactful way. Like cloning is definitely up there.
Yes. And that's because you also can, if you do the whole, change only one thing and stuff like that, you end up really being able to see the impact whenever you're running the same individual again,
Yeah.
you know? And you can even on weed that you're like, oh shit, this is killer on that first run. You fucking run it 3 more times. Ooh, you're gonna see like a whole new animal
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
because you just get better at it.
So as on the topic of whole nother animal, like let's get into some rapid fires here and compare your first grow setup to your current, and not with necessarily specificity, but sort of tech stack like lights, newts, hand water, irrigation, tent, whatever you want to, include in that stack from like what your first grow looked like if you were to do the roster versus of your stats versus like this current one.
Mm. Well, I wouldn't say first,
Okay.
because that was just like mexi bag seed in my closet with soil that I stole from a law firm from their flower bed. Because I don't know, I just thought it was good. I was like, oh, it's got to be good soil. But like, so when I got actually started getting good at growing, I was doing flood tables.
Okay.
Um, and nothing fancy, no drippers or just straight up ebb and flow.
Okay.
The dirty tray and all. Um,
And you were running
and
high intensity just shop
yeah,
lights?
I was running HPS. I'd gotten a dimmable, switchable 1,000 watt. So I'd start out with metal halide for that first week that they were on the table, and then flip it and switch it out to the HPS. And then I did the whole switch back to metal halide the last fucking 2 weeks to try and increase resin, but not realizing the glass probably blocked all of the UV anyways.
And what newts were you running back then?
Fox Farm.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, it was the like the Dirty Dozen bottles before they made it, but when they only had like 9 bottles.
Okay. Long before I started growing. And now, like, so compare it gets now, like, what are you running nutrient wise? I'm assuming you're running LEDs now and not HPSs.
Oh yeah, I run HLG pretty much exclusively.
Okay.
I love their lights. I've been fucking I plan on passing it down to my son. Uh but run HLG, and now I'm in doing the whole, quote unquote living soil stuff. Um
You feed
I've been
teas or anything, or is it all amendments?
so I use I'll refresh my bed with castings and what's it called? Pumice every like, I don't know, maybe like 2 cycles or something like that. And mostly now I'm just watering in like the little extra stuff like the full power, which is a fulvic um acid thing from BioAg. Uh I use Dram fish hydrolysate as like my main actual feed because I used to do the whole like heavy on dry amendments and castings, which does just work. But after a couple of years, I started getting more into, like using amendments at specified times to try and more kind of steer the flowering cycle. And that's when I ended up switching to the fish hydrolysate because I can steer it a lot better using fish hydrolysate at pulsing it at certain times in the grow, depending on like what I'm growing. And just kind of use what's it called? Diamond K gypsum. And I have like an Epsom salt that's for like hydro growers. And I use those as my CalMag because they both come along with sulfur in it. So I don't know. I figure that helps with the hurt profile, or what, at least so people say. Um, I use a lot of microbes. I like rotate between different microbe products every week,
Oh wow.
just to kind of like keep up different consortiums.
That biodiversity.
Yeah, and I figure the whole system kind of fucking runs off of it. So like I know that likely I don't have I am doing it at a detriment to my own pocket. Like I don't have to use them, inoculate that often, you know. I definitely have those colonies in there doing their thing, you know, that I just kind of have, that I would just have to steer a little bit and keep alive, steward and whatnot. But I would rather have more than less, and it's cheaper. And I bulk up EM1, so that's hella cheap. You know, I get 20 gallons off of one $30 bottle.
Oh wow.
And that's, I can essentially use that as much as I fucking want to.
Yeah.
I don't even measure, you know, like I just chug, chug, chug. All right, that's cool. That looks about right.
Awesome. Well, okay. So then, before we move on a little bit, the fish hydrosylate, like in very basic terms, like I'm 5 years old, like is that something you're just adding mid flower to sort of enhance the natural processes, or is there a specific process and time that you're trying to stimulate certain results?
Yeah, so I have two different ones.
Okay.
Um, I have their original formula, which is like a 2-for-1, and then they have a one that has like extra kelp added to make it a 4-4 2 or something like that, or 4-5-2 some shit, where it's just like a higher nitrogen version. So I use that higher nitrogen for like my stuff in veg, um, and then I'll use it right as I flip, like the day or plus or minus 1 day of flip, to give it an initial good, you know, fat belly as it starts to do that, you know, get those signals, and then switch to the lower end one, and towards depending on the plants, because like a lot of the blueberry stuff, they are super sensitive to nitrogen.
Okay.
Like if they smell it in the room, they'll fucking start clawing up on you and everything. Uh and then there's other stuff, you know, like chem and stuff and ECSD, shit like that, where like I do have to feed it, you know, heavier. And on those, I'll add in extra CalMag on top of it, which the hydrolysate comes with calcium from the bones of the fish. But I still add it on top just because a lot of those things seem to be very calcium hungry. Um, yeah.
Okay. Well, and you sort of answered this, but sounds like you sort of have found a happy place on the organic side of Synganics. Is that fair to say, between salts and organics,
Oh no.
or are you fully natural organic inputs?
Oh, fully organic.
Oh,
The
okay.
dram is just they just take fish heads and guts, and you know, like all they cut, there's a place, a fishery or whatever, that'll cut the fillet off. Everything else goes to them. They macerate it up in a giant vat and just let the microbes from the bellies of the fish eat it. And then they stabilize it with phosphoric acid. Boom, good to go.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a wet or a dry trimmer? Do you branch hang,
Oh,
whole plant?
dry. I don't even trim until I fucking go to smoke it.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I keep my dude, I don't even buck until I go to smoke it.
And is that just because of the climate that you're in, or is that just your preferred method for the dry? Or
So for one, it is easier. I will say that. It does it allows me, oh hey, as jars go, I gotta trim as I go. I don't have to sit here for 2 fucking days type of deal. Um, but it also, like, man, I was getting to a point where like it didn't matter what I did. I mean, I got sea vaults, I did all these things trying to make it to where my harvest, my smoke was good from one harvest all the way to the next, but inevitably after, about 5 weeks of being in whatever container they're in, I even tried busting them out in a bunch of smaller sea vaults, all sorts of stuff, like so I wouldn't be opening it as much, all of that. But inevitably it does lose, you know, parts of its character over an amount of time. This way, the smoke that I can pull branches out. I've had bags that like I lost and found in cleaning up from like months and to where I didn't even remember when I grew it.
Oh wow.
And the weed was just as fucking good.
Wow.
So,
So how
you
are
know,
you storing these buds on a log?
in paper bags inside of rolled up and then inside of a thick contractor bag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a very old method, like old hill tech, but man, like a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't really be doing that unless like, they did it because they had fucking hundreds of pounds and stuff that they're dealing with. But honestly, it works at every scale. I mean, I've done it just on those little roadie beer bags that you get from the store when you get a roadie. Just putting like a couple of branches in that and putting that in a fucking gallon freezer bag, like it works
oh wow.
at all
Okay.
scales.
Sounds like both, but seeds or clones? I guess if you had to pick, where would you fall?
I like running clones of seed. Like I flower from clone and stuff, but like I prefer from seed pops. Like I'll take clones in from my friends, mostly from their seed pops. Like I do have some elite cuts and all of that stuff, but I don't really care about it. Like I'm not, like it doesn't make me puff my chest out or any bullshit like that, like it does some people. I mean, it's very cool and I feel honored, don't get me wrong. Like the for my friends who did, like the people that they are to entrust me with like, hey, I think you're cool enough to let you have this cut, like I'm super fucking honored about that. But like, eh, like I got a lot of cool shit from seeds.
Yeah, and it's stuff other people haven't, had the chance to try.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like you can get elite level cuts. You can pop your own. I promise you. You just gotta look through good stuff and you will find good stuff. Like there definitely are some packs that like, just based on parentage, you're gonna expect like, ooh, I need to pop more because there's gonna be a high miss rate with this one just based on what it is. But dude, for the most part, like a lot of that shit's cope that breeders oh, you're not gonna find, something worth keeping out of one pack. Yeah, if you suck, like because you can get a pretty high floor, if you choose the right parents.
Yeah.
You look through the right stuff and you're gonna be happy with like you're gonna walk away with a cut that you're like, hell yeah, like trading with your friends and shit.
Yeah, I mean, going back to being picky about where you start.
Yep.
Are you growing primarily for flour or hash?
Oh, flour for
Okay.
sure. I do have a friend who like got weirdly good at making hash very quickly. Um, with just like a couple of resources. And this motherfucker now like has a cold space and all. He had just started like a year ago. Um,
Hell yeah.
so I'm gonna fresh frozen, like a plant or two from stuff just to kind of see which one of my cuts work for that, like work well for it, like where the yield is worth it or like the incredible quality is like worth it. Because I do know that I have stuff that probably will not even extract well, and not just in terms of like, oh, I need to get a heavy washer or whatever, but like just the state of the resin is not conducive for that type of for extractions. You kind of have to smoke it either in flour form or doing like flour rosin.
Yeah. No,
Because I have a cut. I have stuff that like takes longer to dry because the resin is so oily and greasy, which from what I hear is a very bad thing for hash.
Yeah, well, and it seems to be, like you said, flour rosin, but also seemingly the sift, like the dry sift wave, has come into that a little for the plants that, are their resin is less stable in water. Some of that you can get around with the dry sift, I guess. I don't know. I haven't played a whole lot with dry sifting my non-hashing plants. Uh, but you never know, I guess. But yeah, grease is something. I had 2 plants that I just chopped that on the glove test came out a little greasy. I decided not to freeze any of them, and as I'm trimming them, there's just rain. Trichets are just raining over the trim tray, and I'm like, I should have just frozen this plant. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the genetics you're running, but are there maybe like 3 breeders or 3 genetic lines or families that you would recommend to home growers or that you've personally found success with?
Let's see. I'm trying to give a multifaceted answer here.
So many choices.
So, okay, we'll go. If you're trying to learn about cuts like that you don't have access to, like say you're, just a dude in his house, unconnected from anybody, I would go with CSI, because he is, I mean, he's probably autistic like most of us, and is very particular about provenance, to where and does a crazy amount of work, and is very intelligent in what he's putting in the room when he's doing pollination. So he's always making S1s while he's making hybrids, all of that stuff. So you can really get a good look at stuff, and like an education in certain lines. Dude, for neo elites, I would go with High and Lonesome, like especially for the people who are like, oh, I don't want, who are super against fem work for their personal reasons. He is a master at male selection, and he won't tell you that, like he'll just be like, oh, I grow mids, but
like most great growers.
yeah, but dude, it's crazy. Like, because it's one thing to be like a good grower, but to be able to pick a fucking male consistently out of different stuff that just produces crazy good, like, because males aren't something that we smoke. They don't they only show you so much of what they could possibly pass, and he's very good at that.
Okay.
And he does interesting work, like he released some Mango Haze stuff, Chemd back cross stuff, like all sorts of stuff that I just find hella interest in.
Okay.
mm,
Yeah, no, I love that. Any you got a wild card in there? I know you were hunting through the shoreline stuff. Is there any like a local or never before heard of guy that you like what they're working with?
mm, no, but I will say for um where I am just now about to start my, like, quote unquote breeding journey or whatever, and it's because of a line from my buddy Pack at he goes by Santa Cruz Goat Farm, right? And his shoreline cross to the Blue Dream, the Santa Cruz cut, is so fucking phenomenally sure. Like it, and its improvements on everything I love about it. And this is the first time that I've ever felt like, man, I need to take this to F2 so that I could then take it to F3. I've never given a shit about that before,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's cool to think about like, ooh, maybe I do this. I more so just want to understand breeding so that I can pick better, you know? Like, because I'm a flower grower. That's just what I do. That's what I like. That's what I'm good at. But that was the garbage cloud was the first line that I got that urge to like, ooh, I have to do this. I have to see what's in the kids.
That's cool. I love that. I have also dabbled in some hobby pollen chunking, hobby seed making. I have seeds coming down here in a couple weeks that I'm pretty excited. I popped a few early ones off the plant and threw them in water yesterday, so really excited about that. What's keeping you excited about cannabis these days?
Mm. Dude, man. Well, I'm growing a lot of cool shit, so there's that. Like, obviously having good smoke around is it keeps it's always been interesting for me when I started uh just kind of like getting better at the understanding genetics side of things, like to where I started growing the stuff I wanted to see and all of that. Um, but in terms of the overall scene, I think that there's going to be a heady revival coming, and it's not going to be like it was back in the day. Those days are fucking gone, like, but I do think that there's been enough people, enough boom into the market, um, for long enough that even people who were new, like let's say COVID time, we're now at a point now where they're like, fuck, all this stuff is the same. So they're I see it, I see Custies talking about it. I see, just like your everyday smoker who's just trying to buy an eighth, like to hang out with the boys on Friday night or whatever. They're starting to like want more out of their weed. And I'm also seeing growers who were kind of in hibernation, where they're still growing and all that stuff, but they didn't give a shit, they were more in the mentality of this is the market you guys deserve because this is what you kind of forced. Um and they're now like, oh, hey, there's interest. I might be able to actually get enough money to start kind of, you know,
Making it worth it.
doing cool stuff again.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I'm seeing it here too. I mean, even in Colorado, like I'm seeing people who used to grow, who stopped growing after, 2013 legalization, who are like, okay, the weed that you just showed me made me excited about weed again. I might need to pick up a light. So,
Yeah, I'm seeing it like because of the syndicate, like I talk to people all over and like it's kind of a theme, that's like going on in everywhere right now. Every local market is kind of starting to turn on the whole like, hey man, let's get some new stuff. Like actually new, not just a new name. They're kind of wisening up to the Chad tricks.
yeah. I mean, on that note, do you have any epic crosses or cuts that you've lost that you would bring back if you had the chance?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's actually one of the reasons why I'm looking down the LHB, the Loompas, like family of stuff. Um, I lost it was a Shoreline BX3 that was not like Shoreline at all. It was like a weird fucking OG, where it didn't have any of those fuel notes, and it was all like that marshmallowy earthiness without any of the fuel. And there was like a weird, I don't know, the shore only influenced it enough to be really fucking weird.
Okay.
And so I lost that in a hurricane that came through here.
Oof.
And that is definitely something that that I'm trying to not recreate, but I want a cut that's similar, and I have the components to do it. So that's, kind of just a longer term goal that I'm shooting for right now. I want to do the garbage cloud F2, and also a back cross, and throw in a couple of my, kind of keepers in there just to
Yeah, you
see
got
what's
pollen.
up. Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna waste a space in a pollination, I might as well make it worth it. Get as much seeds as I can, so I don't have to do it again.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, it's like when I have a 2x2 that I do my pollen chucking in, and if I've got an empty space, it's like, all right, who's got a plant? Who's got a plant they want to put in here because I've got space and I've got pollen. Let's do it. um, if you were to leave growers that are listening with some advice, whether that's on growing or on genetics buying or wherever you find yourself offering advice, what would that advice be?
Oh, um, damn. You're saying new growers? I would say just
Any growers, any grower that's doing this is for fun as a home grower, as a hobby grower.
I would say just hyper focus on your watering for a while. And when I say a while, I don't mean a week. I mean fucking like 3 runs, where you're just really focusing on nailing down getting your dry back, getting, you know, not watering at too high of a frequency, um, not watering at too low, like just focus on that for a while, for several runs consecutively, and you will be a better grower. It doesn't matter. I mean, I still do it now. Like once a year, I'll get into like because what'll happen is I'll fucking kind of, like slip a little bit and be like, shit, I need to really focus, hammer down on it, reignite those skills again. And that every time it helps, I get better grows consistently from it, even now.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. For the growers who are still listening and who've enjoyed this conversation and want to know more about what you're up to, and if they're not in the Discord, where might they find you? Where can they show support or just engage with you in conversation about their favorite new hobby?
Well, I am a sometimes co-host on the Breeder Syndicate podcast on YouTube, and I think we're on like all the audio stuff too, all the audio platforms. Um, and I am a moderator in the Syndicate Discord. Um, and because of that, I do post in the hobby growers one, and I I just recently cut out all of the other servers that are not focused on growing, so that I could kind of focus on giving back, and like engaging with people in my own community. um
I'm glad we made the cut.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I like your I've told you from the beginning. I've liked a lot of those, like the newsletters and stuff. I like the interviews. You ask questions that I'm thinking, like while I'm listening to it, I'll be like, man, I wonder, and then you'll ask. And it's like, all right, fucking cool. Because that pisses me off about so many podcasts where they just don't think to ask that one extra question to
Yeah,
get like to really expand on stuff.
you're like, you had that pivotal moment and you just moved on.
Yeah, now I gotta wait for another interview and hope that they do it?
Yeah. Well, and everyone likes to lean into certain things, so I can see how that happens. But yeah, I've tried to make this just an authentic dialogue. Like I joked that I didn't want to do a podcast. I just wanted to have conversations with people I know, and this is what the essence of that is: just two growers bullshitting about their favorite topic.
Yeah, yeah, I've dug it quite a bit.
Like
Um,
Means
I
a lot.
bet I've not stepped my foot into the hash episodes just because that's not really my purview on stuff, but I will be soon just because I'm, trying to become a little bit better educated. I used to blast a lot of fucking BHO back in the day, and that's like my main extract experience. And now I just smoke flower. So
Yeah.
I do want to get better though.
Well, this has been incredible, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experiences and all the lore with us. And I look forward to more conversations like this with you.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That's it for now. New episodes drop weekly to inspire your hobby. Hit subscribe, leave a review, share with a friend. And as always, I'm your host, Ben Owens, and we'll see you next time.